I think she's a disgrace. I actually don't think she's a talented person. I've tried to be nice to her because I would have liked to have gotten some deals done. She's incapable of doing deals. She's a nasty, vindictive, horrible person.
All right. When the president could actually be bothered to visit the cemeteries of fallen American troops, he used the opportunity to smear a domestic political opponent while overseas.
On by the way, a date that is about as sacred as any date to members of the military and also to those of us who greatly appreciate their sacrifices. D-Day, when you're sitting there with the graves of our fallen heroes at Normandy behind you, and we were there when that was happening. It's absolutely shocking. It's as shocking as what he said at Arlington when he was walking with General Kelly. It's just, we keep going through these phases where people say it's getting worse, and you can see an article every 6 months. Things are getting worse. We didn't think they were going to get worse. I remember Jonathan Lemire writing something about people saying things are getting even worse now, worse than people expected. George Conway writing something several months later. And so people pretty soon just started to say, okay, well, we understand there's no bottom to this man, to Donald Trump.
It's not getting worse. It's always been terrible.
But you just don't know how low that bottom can be. And then you read the Jeffrey Goldberg piece and you realize, again, that there's just no way to predict just how terrible it is. And it does seem to keep getting worse.
Katty Kay and Gene Robinson are still with us, and joining the conversation, we have MSNBC national affairs analyst and co-host of Showtime's The Circus and executive editor of The Recount, John Heilemann. Donny Deutsch is with us, executive editor of Gen, a Medium publication focused on politics, power, and culture. Garance Frank Rute, whose latest piece is called The Chaos Candidate Leans into the Whirlwind, and founder of the conservative website The Bulwark, and author of How the Right Lost Its Mind, Charlie Sykes.
So, Charlie, I want to start with you really quickly and just get your response to Jeffrey Goldberg's article. Again, you and I growing up in the same political tribe, so to speak, and one of the things that I think actually shaped our worldview, our tribe's worldview, was Vietnam and, stand with the troops, America, love it or leave it. During the Iraq War, people putting the yellow ribbons on the back of their cars, always putting right up front how much we supported the troops. And here we have the Republican president with 90% support in the Republican Party saying the most extraordinarily disparaging thing about American troops and about service to country. And the only thing his supporters on Twitter and on TV can say is, well, why won't they say it on the record? Which, of course, nobody was asking the FBI agents that were denigrating Hillary Clinton during the 2016 campaign to put their names on the record. It's fascinating, the double standard. And this is all that our former political allies are left with.
I had a flashback this morning thinking about a time I was sitting in D.C. at the World War II Memorial. I'd flown with a group of World War II veterans on an honor flight, and I was sitting there thinking about, this was back in 2016, thinking that this country and these veterans deserve so much more than Donald Trump, this vain, shallow, unempathetic narcissist. Look, it is fascinating to watch how Trump world is going to react to this, but also, the people we call the anti-Trumpers, who, look, they know the truth. They know the guy. But this, if they acknowledge it, if they believe it, it's a real challenge to their conscience. Because how can you defend this? How can you defend knowing that?
By the way, Charlie, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Because it's just one of my pet peeves with these anti-Trumpers who do, of course, do what they do for clicks. They do what they do, of course, for ratings. They won't defend Donald Trump, but they love criticizing Donald Trump's opponents and people who attack Donald Trump. These people will show Nancy Pelosi on a loop, and they will make a huge deal about Nancy Pelosi's haircut, and yet they never have said anything. The overwhelming majority, the anti-Trump squad, have never said anything about Vladimir Putin putting bounties on the heads of American troops. Never said anything about it. But they will grab whatever scratch from some idiot talk show host like myself or some mistake that a newspaper will make, and will blow it up into 2 weeks worth of content, but will ignore Donald Trump being obsequious to a man who is putting bounties on troops' heads.
They can't confront it directly because then they look. A lot of these anti-Trumpers, still have a little bit of a vestige of a conscience here, and they've managed to ignore a great deal, right? They've managed to accept a great deal, but if they had to actually sit there and think, is the commander-in-chief playing footsie with Vladimir Putin? Which, of course, the answer is yes. Does the commander-in-chief have this much contempt for the men and women who serve? Does he really not want to see wounded warriors because that would offend him? You can't actually justify this, which is why you see this. Let's talk about Nancy Pelosi's hair rather than confront the reality of this. But the thing about this story that is so painful, I think, even for them, is that it's so consistent with who Donald Trump has told us he is over and over and over again. The way he reacted to John McCain, his attacks on the Gold Star families, the comments he's made to generals, just the way he sees the world. This is the lens through which Donald Trump sees the world. Winners versus losers, suckers versus killers. So therefore, when you're talking about POWs or people who are missing in action, this president just does not have the understanding of human suffering or human sacrifice or serving a cause larger than himself. And that's what makes this story so devastating. And by the way, I would like people to come out on record. I would like to hear from General Kelly. I think this is the moment where if you saw this in real time, this is when you share this with the American people, because at that point, look, it becomes much, much harder to avoid and ignore the man who is sitting as commander-in-chief and who has the power of life and death over hundreds of thousands of Americans in uniform right now.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.